AI mindset. And here's what I think we want to say. I will treat the rise of AI as an advantage and not a threat. Whatever other freelancers may say, feel, or experience is not my concern. There's a lot of negative talk about AI there, and in many senses, some of it is well founded. Like we fear that it will take over our work, and it doesn't have to be that way. Certainly, if you are operating at the lower end of the market, as it were, if you're writing product descriptions for catalogs, if you're writing boilerplate blog posts for the travel industry, at that lower end, AI has already stolen that market. Companies use AI because it's inexpensive, very, very fast, and they can create that kind of stuff at volume. But we don't want to be in that space. As sovereign freelancers, we don't want to live at the lower levels. We're going to live in the higher levels. And at those levels, AI can be extraordinarily helpful to us. So we're going to look at 4 ways to leverage AI for growth: to enhance productivity, to find better clients, to expand service offerings, and for personal branding and marketing purposes. Number 1, enhance productivity. I find this absolutely huge. One of the bottlenecks, I mean, the principal bottleneck of being a freelancer is that we work alone. There's just one of us. And I often say to my wife, like, with AI at my side, I often feel like there are 3 or 4 of us now operating in my business. Because I use AI a lot. I use it for brainstorming, for note taking, for data analysis, for time management. It's contributed to an extraordinary degree to how much I can get done, but also it's enabled me to do things that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to do. So let's look at some of those tools that can help us with that. So first of all, there are the frontier models like ChatGPT, Claude Gemini, Llama, and others. These are great for brainstorming, report writing, analysis. And honestly, I'm going to go through a whole bunch of different services here. 90% of the time, I just use ChatGPT. So it's basically these days it's GPT 4.0 or GPT 4.5. Now, other people have favorites. For some people, Claude is a favorite, Gemini is a favorite. But one of the things I found in terms of productivity is I try not to get hooked into too many different services, because all of a sudden then I'm kind of I'm paying for a lot of AI services, and some of the productivity benefits are reduced. So I try to keep things simple and clean. That said, a tool like Otter AI is fantastic for note taking, for meetings, conversations, and things like that. It doesn't just do a transcript of a verbal conversation. It actually kind of breaks things down, gives you the bullet points, the high points of the conversation, etc. Notebook LM from Google. This is a wonderful personalized research assistant where, again, you can throw a whole bunch of data in there and get it analyzed. One fun thing with Notebook LM is that you can actually upload a whole bunch of information, and there's a function there where you can turn that into a 2-person conversation like a podcast. So you throw up your big report, your business report, and then you give it time to crunch through that, and then 2 voices come up, and it's just like a podcast. And it's 2 people talking about the information within that article. So sometimes I've used that where I've come across a long form article from some industry expert that I respect, but I don't really have the time to read it all. But I know I'm going to go on my bike later and get a bit of exercise. So I will upload that to Notebook LM. I will turn it into this podcast conversation. I will download it onto my phone, and then I'll listen to it as if it were a podcast while I'm cycling. So instead of having to read the article, I'm actually getting an analysis of that article from these 2 voices. So that's really interesting. You should try that. Reclaim.ai, that's a calendar assistant, optimizes your daily schedule. I don't use that, but I know people who do use that and said they found it very useful. So that can help in terms of productivity. Find better clients. This is a fun one. You can use AI to identify core strengths, list companies and contacts that are a good match. On the right there, if you get into LinkedIn, your LinkedIn account, you can actually use AI to help you find good fits for you on that platform. So that's interesting. But also, I mean, I've used things like, again, ChatGPT. I've given ChatGPT the URL of my profile in LinkedIn, And I said, hey, this is who I am. This is my past. This is my skill set. And I really enjoy working with mid-sized companies, not so much the tiny ones, not so much the really big ones. Please give me a list, do an analysis and give me a list of clients I might want to reach out to based on what you read in my profile. And it will do that. And I've seen some really interesting results come from that. And I said, hey, that's interesting. Please give me a contact person, for the top 10 companies you recommend. Please give me contact information for the person I should reach out to at those companies. It probably doesn't nail that 100%, but it nails it about 80%. So again, it's finding me better clients that are a better fit for me, but it's doing it at speed. So my mindset with AI is that I'm using it to basically augment my abilities to enhance my kind of sovereign status. So tools you can use for that, again, the frontier models, but also LinkedIn Premium. That gives you access to in-mail where you can directly mail prospects, and the AI-powered job assessment that I showed you in the slide before. Hourlyrate.ai. Again, I'm throwing in some things here that I don't use personally that I've heard good words about. Hourlyrate.ai helps with job search generating proposals. So that's interesting. On the point of generating proposals, like I say, I like to use AI to increase my reach and my productivity. But if I use, whether it's ChatGPT or hourlyrate.ai to generate a proposal, I will always go back and heavily edit that. So it is in my own brand voice with my own brand messaging. What you don't want to do is send, for example, a proposal to a prospective client that reads and feels the same as the proposal they got yesterday and the day before, because everyone's using hourlyrate.ai or something equivalent. You never ever want to sound the same. So in any kind of client facing communications, I either write it entirely on my own, or if I'm using tools like ChatGPT or hourlyrate.ai, I will take that first output and I will heavily edit it so that it is mine and that it sounds like mine. Expand your services. You can do. I mean, I can do stuff as a freelancer now that I couldn't do before the arrival of AI. So, content creation, workflow consulting, AI-driven data insights. Let me give you an example. I was talking to a close friend of mine yesterday. Actually, let me go to the next slide first so I can show you what I used here. So again, ChatGPT, other models, Julius AI, that does data analysis, simplifies, and that's where you kind of speak to your data, which is kind of fun. I haven't used it. I've had a peek, but I haven't used it. That bottom one, Gemini Deep Research. So if you go to Google Gemini and you look for, they have different models you can use, and Deep Research is one of them. So going back to my story, I was talking to a good friend of mine a couple of days ago, and he and a business partner are thinking of setting up a business in a particular business, particular industry, in a particular city in Japan. And they'd been doing a bit of research, but it was kind of hard because it's a fairly new industry, and they were having trouble kind of finding information. So I said, "Hey, are you familiar with Gemini Deep Research?" And he said, "No." So I said, "Go there, give it a prompt, tell it what you're doing, give it lots of specifics, like it's this industry, this is the audience, this is the city in Japan that we're thinking of setting up in, and tell me what you think." And I've used Gemini Deep Research with similar questions. So this friend of mine gets back to me an hour later, and he is just completely freaking out because he put in the prompt, and then you have to walk away and you can see it thinking it's going through the process. But this isn't like a quick ChatGPT thing. When it does the deep research, it'll probably take 10, 15 minutes to do it. So you go away, have a cup of coffee, come back. And my friend said he had like a 17-page report. It had something like 65 citations at the end. Like, this is where the research had come from. And he said, and like, this is a seasoned entrepreneur, this guy. And he read the report that Gemini Deep Researcher created. And he said, he said, in my industry, I would pay six figures for this. I would literally pay six figures for this from a consulting company. And he said, honestly, this is better than some of the reports that I've had from consulting companies for that kind of money. So yeah, Gemini Deep Research, that allows you to do things that you would otherwise not have been able to do. So let's say I have a client in the pet industry, and I want to research something, and some niche in there as part of the scope of the project, but I want to completely blow my client away. I'll go to Gemini Deep Research. I'll have it create this amazing report, and I will perhaps gift it to my client, or I won't gift it. Maybe this becomes one of my offerings. Maybe this is something that I do now, is that I offer these deep dive industry reports. And I have this as a huge value. So it becomes one of the things that I can offer my clients. So you can see now how we're moving very far away from, oh my goodness, AI is going to steal my work. AI is the end of everything. And we're looking much more closely now at how to use AI to amplify our value and our brand. Personal branding and marketing. So this speaks to the point I made earlier of going to ChatGPT and saying, hey, here's the URL of my LinkedIn page, recommend some clients for me. So I can use AI-driven analytics for market research, audience insights, optimized content strategy, graphic design, all kinds of things. Something else that I've done is I say, okay, who are my clients? And then I ask ChatGPT to create a sentiment analysis. Like, what are their fears? What are their desires? What do they love? What do they hate? Because as a copywriter, I know that I want to address people's emotions if I want to drive results. So perhaps counterintuitively, these models are very good at tasks like sentiment analysis. So that can become part of your work process. So let's look at some of the tools here. Again, normal suspects at the top. Survey SEO, I haven't used it, but that's using AI to optimize content for search engine rankings. ImageFX. This is this is an image creation model from Google, and I find that I've stopped using almost everything else other than ImageFX because the quality of the output I find is so good. It's so strong. It's like usually I just put in a simple prompt, and the first output is what I want. In fact, as we go through this presentation, I'll maybe point out one or two. There's quite a number of images within this whole series of sessions that were created by ImageFX. Another one that at the time of recording this is very recent entrant into the space is GPT-4o, which you think is just a regular version of ChatGPT. And it doesn't kind of advertising, certainly not on my interface that, hey, this is amazing for creating images, but it is amazing for creating images. And it allows you to do all kinds of design stuff. In fact, if you have a look at the logo, bottom left, the Sovereign Freelancer, that was created by GPT-4. And I walked it through all different iterations. It's very difficult when you're working with images to say, okay, change that image a little bit so it's a bit more like this or it's a bit more like that. Basically, these models don't do that very well. GPT-4 does that extremely well. So I asked for all kinds of different versions and iterations of the logo until it was what I wanted. So that's another tool you can look at. Ways to mitigate AI-related risks. So avoid commodity work, be more human, become an AI expert. So let's have a look at that. So like I say, avoid the commodity work. That's the product descriptions. That's the boilerplate blog post, all that kind of stuff. You want to raise the bar, which we want to do anyway, right? As a sovereign freelancer. So you don't do the repetitive stuff that AI can automate. You want to go more high level in terms of strategy, creativity, direct client collaborations. And as a freelancer, you really can up your game now. Like that whole thing I was talking about with the Gemini Deep Research, creating those reports. With that kind of capability at hand, you really can elevate the kind of quality and level of your game, of what you offer your clients. So get far away from the commodity work, go into the high-end, high-value work. Be more human. So this is like setting yourself apart from AI by writing in ways that touch people at a very emotional level, using sensory experiences and nuanced emotions. So if we look at the picture on the right, so we've got a happy couple, they're on the beach, they're eating ice cream, there's the smell of the ocean, the sound of the ocean, the sound of the gulls, the wind in their hair. These sensory experiences are not available to AI. ChatGPT has never tasted ice cream and never will taste ice cream and doesn't have memories of eating ice cream as a little kid. All right. So this, when I say be more human, it's the sensory experiences, it's the nuances, emotions. It's like if they go down and walk on the beach, that feeling of the sand between their toes on the edge of the water, AI can't experience that. So be more human. That adds a layer. So yes, leverage AI, do everything you can with it, but to differentiate yourself, insert much more kind of human emotional nuance into your copy or whatever output you are creating. And the next thing is to become an AI expert, um, because we talk about AI a lot, but for people like me, I know I'm in a bit of a bubble. I'd spend a lot of time learning about AI and keeping up with AI, but that's not true of every company and every person out there. So a lot of companies need help with this. So position yourself as a trusted expert who understands AI's strengths and limitations. Because, and again, this can be part of your offering, or it can just add value to what you are already offering. So just to help out there, here's some places I go to learn. So the Artificial Intelligence Institute, sorry, the Marketing Artificial Intelligence Institute. There's a link there. They have a podcast that I listen to every week. They have a lot of other resources on their website. This for me is very, very high level of trust. There's lots of noise, lots of nonsense out there about AI. This is perhaps my number one choice in terms of, do I trust these people? And these people I absolutely do. So they have free courses, paid courses, they have free events, paid events. But like I say, one of the things I do every week is listen to their podcast. So you may want to check them out. And there's some newsletters that I read that come in pretty much every day. There's the neuron.ai, and you can see the image on the right, superhuman.ai, and then almosttimely.substack.com. Those are three newsletters that I certainly glance at each morning, and if there's something catches my attention, then I'll give it a good read. So yeah, AI, for some people it is like a big downer, but it absolutely doesn't have to be that way. And as a sovereign freelancer, we can leverage AI to our advantage in all kinds of interesting ways. Okay, in the next session, we are going to look at networking and building deep social connections. Because again, being sovereign is not something we can do alone. Networking is incredibly important to that. So I'll see you in the next session.